Rina is here now.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, Rina. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Are you in, where are you right now? In
I'm in
Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, how has things been for you?
It's been a roller coaster, to be honest. I think I complete a year actually in a couple of weeks from when I started the company. We started off focusing on helping startups bridge into Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. But due to COVID, all of that's changed and not many people are scaling internationally. And then, of course, the geopolitical situation has changed as well. So now we've pivoted and we're doing a bunch of other things, including doing research and other related work. So.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for, spending time with us. We wanted to do this because we wanted to really get to know our members. As you know,
Sure.
Gary did a very good job, and we have got so many members, but we realized that maybe this is a good time to have a conversation face-to-face with the members, even if it is via Zoom, because via text and emails, there is so much connection you can make, but really talking to someone and really understanding what they do, what they need should be the way. So maybe we could start with getting to know yourself a little bit better, and then what does FinStep Asia do, right?
Okay, sure. Okay.
So how long have you been in Hong Kong, or were you born
6
and
years
bred
now.
in Hong Kong?
No, I'm originally from India. I was born and brought up in Bangalore in India, the IT capital, which wasn't the IT capital when I was there. But yeah, I've been in Hong Kong for 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
And you came here because of work or family?
I came to do my MBA with University of Hong Kong and London Business School. They have a joint program. And after I finished, I stayed back for work, and I've stayed since.
Well, Hong Kong must be treating you good. That's why you stayed for a long time. I love going to Hong Kong, actually. Well, this is probably the first time in many years, that I have not been able to go back to Hong Kong. But I heard, good news about the rules, the government relaxing the rules, and the malls are flooded with people right now. I hope, we still go out with, social distancing, because I like you said, Hong Kong has gone through a lot, right? From the political situation in the past, and then to COVID right now. And how has it been with, like you said, you started the company and you are actually helping companies from, is it from just India to come on board to Hong Kong, or companies around the world interested in doing business with Hong Kong?
So it's not just Hong Kong. The way we look at it is we are venture builders to help companies scale internationally. So let's assume you are in Hong Kong and you want to go into Southeast Asia or the Middle East. We can then provide you with the go-to-market strategy, right? And secondly is we can also do strategies where if you're a corporate house and you want to connect with startups, we can help you with the innovation strategy. We can help you with finding the right startups to solve your POCs. So we can do both.
Okay, that's good. I also understand that you're part of this Fintech Association in Hong Kong, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me? Can you share a little bit more about what's the mandate for this association? I'm sure a lot of our probably listeners and members would like to join. How can they reach you?
Sure. So the I'm one of the co-founders of the Fintech Association Hong Kong, which we started in 2017. Now the association was created to be the voice of the fintech community in Hong Kong, right? Ranging from large corporates such as HSBC, Citibank, New World, etc., all the way to technology companies like Alibaba, Tencent, Ping An, to now talking about a range of fintech companies and professional services, right? The association has got 3 main goals. One is advocacy, to work with regulators and government on fintech policy. Secondly is collaboration, to bring together all the ecosystem players, as I mentioned, from corporates to startups on one table on different themes through our committees and different work groups that we set up. And lastly is education to enable students to understand about fintech, also for professionals to know what is happening in the ecosystem, and for that to be added or augmented as they're upskilling themselves. So that's where Fintech Association is. We now have 1,500 representative members of 350 plus companies. So you can join either as an individual or as a company, and we have different categories depending on the size of the company. So if you're a startup, it's much lower fees. If you're a corporate, it's higher fees. But it's on average, the way we have structured it out is that membership is equivalent to or it's equivalent to your size. So if you're a corporate, you get to have 10 representative members. If you're a startup, you get to have 3 representative members. So then that's the fees, etc., gets balanced out for you. But
Right.
Critically, I think the key element here is, as the main body for fintech in Hong Kong now, and working with all players, what you get is, number one, an exposure to the overall fintech scene in Hong Kong and get to participate in it. Secondly, for a lot of people, you're getting a voice that you may not have had previously when it comes to different regulatory and advocacy elements. Right? And thirdly, I think, is the networking element and possibility of, if you're a fintech company, if you're looking for business, and vice versa, if you're a corporate, you're looking at certain startups, you have that access through the association. Unfortunately, of course, due to COVID-19, we haven't yet gotten into full-fledged networking events. And as the social norms improves, I think the association will get back to that. So I also led the association as the general manager for the first 2.5 years before starting FinStep Asia.
And since you are the voice, you guys are the voice for the Hong Kong fintech, everything about fintech. I just wanted to ask you about this. What are your thoughts about crowdfunding in Hong Kong? Is there a crowdfunding company in Hong Kong? What are the regulations to be a crowdfunding company in Hong Kong? I was told that it is quite tough.
Yes. So Hong Kong's regulators are very prudent when it comes to consumer protection, right? And any schemes or any fintech ideas or business models that may need more understanding and education are typically more, have high scrutiny and barrier to entry. So crowdfunding in Hong Kong is not banned, nor is peer-to-peer. Is not banned. Now, but it is only allowed for qualified investors, right? So the reason there being is that the investors should understand about be in a position where they understand what they're investing in and how the models work. So you do have a few crowdfunding companies, but they're, as I said, targeted towards qualified investors. One main example of that is Angel Hub. Angel Hub is an angel investment platform. That was the first SFC licensed platform to be approved, where where qualified investors can register and choose to invest in fintech companies who are also registered on the platform.
Okay, I think Hong Kong has always been very, very strict about rules and regulations and protecting the consumer. I think that is just like Singapore. I think there are good and bad of that restriction. Basically, investors feel that they are protected, which is important because the other countries, like the cowboy countries, when you put in the money, you wouldn't know where the money go to. So do you see Hong Kong, as a financial hub? What are your thoughts between, Hong Kong and Singapore, right? Or what would be your advice if a potential, let's say, an Indian investors coming to you and say, I've got 100 million, and where do you advise me to put in the money? Is it Hong Kong? Is it Singapore? What are your approach? And does your company, the consulting company, work on such projects? A lot of high net worth individuals wants to move their money, right, for whatever reason.
So in terms of the question about Hong Kong and Singapore, I think has been going on for the last 15-20 years and for another 15-20 years, right? But both, I feel, have different value propositions. as much as they are competitors while competing for international companies coming here, I think it is to do with where do you start with, who's your primary target market, right? Are you looking to do it because you are you're focused on ASEAN market and you want to enter the ASEAN market? Then probably Singapore is a better hub, and you have to be very aware of terms I'm using as a hub, because Southeast Asia now is becoming quite a bit mature. I mean, the market is maturing, so you can't just operate off a hub. You need to also go and set up operations deeply in those countries, especially Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. So, but Singapore provides that great base for you to get in there. However, if you're looking at East Asia, you're looking at Greater China, right? Then Hong Kong is a good place, because you have that access to Greater China, you have the access to East Asia as well as Australia, and you can build your business out while working with companies in this region. So I feel that's where the difference is. Secondly, if you talk about fintech, Hong Kong and Singapore both are strong areas for B2B fintech. So if somebody's looking at investment, that's a good platform. And third is to also look at Chinese companies who are looking to scale overseas, right? Quite a few of them are looking to go overseas, especially to Europe and say Latin America, and Hong Kong can provide that bridge for companies. Lastly, we are all looking forward to the Alibaba IPO, secondary IPO in Hong Kong in the next month or so, right? I think the Hong Kong Exchange is meeting soon to give the final approvals. That just shows you about the size of the Hong Kong capital markets, which is a significantly large size to SGX, right? Mainly because of the amount of mainland Chinese companies who list here. You also had Nongfu list recently, right? And now the owner of Nongfu is the richest man in the world. In China, third richest in the second richest in Asia. So you can see that the scale of IPOs in Hong Kong is grown, and with a newer board for biotech companies and innovative companies, there is more scope for you to list here and get your IPO done.
You mentioned about the flush of cash with all these big IPOs and all this, right? I mean, there are the old rich and the new rich, the new startup founders who became paper rich, and the real rich with holding with piles of cash and assets, right? And I'm sure in your cost of being in the Fintech Association, you have come across many startups, fintech startups, and how do you see the fundraising scene in Hong Kong, right? For potential startup founders, one of the challenges is, of course, I mentioned in Malaysia we have like 6 or 7 crowdfunding licenses. I do not know how many are there in Hong Kong, but raising small funds like maybe let's say a couple of $100,000 US is pretty easy through crowdfunding in Malaysia. But is that the same case in Hong Kong?
Hong Kong is a bit complex when it comes to the investment landscape, and I'll qualify that. If you're looking at, say, friends and family round, which is like very early, you have an idea, you want people to invest in, I think you can get a decent amount of money for your fintech ideas, right? But once you start reaching a bit of maturity, fundraising is not as simple. It's a lot more difficult in Hong Kong in the early stages, largely because the investors here, the family offices and other VCs tend to be looking at more mature models to put their money in. Because a lot of it comes from wanting a relatively lesser risk. But once you mature post Series A, you will start seeing a lot more investors who will look to put money in you. Now, having said that, I think the angel investment scene in Hong Kong is improving. There are quite a few people, especially in fintech, who are looking to put money in. Secondly, government grants are quite strong. If you have a good company, then you can apply for Cyberport or Science Park. And once you get in, there is a host of grants that you can use for setting up your company. So that's a good advantage of Hong Kong. And these are grants and not equity funding. So you're basically getting this support from the government for building your business.
That's interesting, because I have got comments from friends, that in terms of the startup scenes, in terms of vibrancy, in terms of access to angel funding, I think Singapore, I mean, I stayed in Singapore for the last 20 over years, but I've been working on the region. I must say that, there are more affluent angel investors in Singapore. I have, been investing since 2006, and, just across the causeway going to Malaysia, or even in Hong Kong, when I talk to people and say, I'm investing in this startup and that startup, and it's just probably, angel investment is always just an ideation stage or at a very early stage. I received a lot of frowns and was like, when are you going to get your money back? I said, correct. That's a good question. I don't know. And you're right. The family offices, the big boys, they will be asking this same question. Yeah. If I have 1 million, I can put in so many, different assets class that I know I will have a guaranteed return. Why should I take a risk? I guess, my personal answer to that is probably, but that, guaranteed 1 or 2% is not interesting enough. Maybe sometimes, is monotonous, is boring. Yeah. But, I guess for the startups that I always meet, they know that they need to get to these family offices. They need to get to these affluent businessmen. Actually, not so much for their money. It's probably for their network, the guidance. If only the businessman, can see it from that point of view that, I've made enough money and I wanted to support new ideas, maybe because 30 years ago, somebody supported my idea, although 30 years ago, there wasn't angel investment, but, it is a sort of balancing act. Most young people, they want to reach out to these family offices. Yeah. And of course, family offices are too busy with so many things. They have got private bankers hounding them always, or the gatekeepers. Yeah. So if a startup founder comes to you and says, I needed to reach a family office or high net worth individuals, I wanted to raise money, but not so much of the physical cash, but because it is for the guidance, the network, and perhaps my product actually, complements what they're doing. What would you advise this young, startup guy to do? How do I then hustle my way to meet this ultra rich people? They are all in parties and all this, right? But startups couldn't probably afford a tuxedo.
Well, in today's world, you don't need a tuxedo as a startup, right? Steve Jobs has helped everybody work off.
We can go to the event in the shop.
Work off $100 budget, right? Wear a jeans and a t-shirt, and then you're Steve Jobs. Yeah. But coming to your point, I think with a lot of due respect to family offices and high net worth individuals, I feel that this notion that they're going to be very helpful to you in terms of your business, etc., is overrated. Now, I will define that, right? I think unless that person happens to be directly related to your business, right? Mm-hmm. Then that may be helpful. Say you're a fintech company and this family office has been in the financial services industry for a long time, right? Then yes, okay, but they're not. If you look at a lot of the traditional family offices, most of them are not coming from necessarily financial services. There's real estate, the traditional industry, and all of it. So from a fintech startups perspective, I think it's better to get the family offices involved, and because they do give funding, maybe they have a lot more patience because they do expect the return, but they are used to having real estate investment and other real asset investment that takes time to mature to give returns. So they do have patience, but also that's why they take more time to come in. So what's important is to build relationships, right? With any type of family offices, to understand the person, to talk to them and not rush into a deal. Culturally, I think that's something that's very East Asian in largely, right? Like if you go to the West, you probably have people who do take decisions very quickly, very objectively, very technically, right? They're like, okay, this is the value this brings to us, etc., etc. Whereas in most parts of East Asia, Hong Kong included, Singapore to a certain extent as well, you have the family offices and investors taking their time. They want to know you, they want to understand you, and they want to trust you. They're investing more in you as much as they're investing in the companies. Now, that's what a VC will also say, very true, but I feel for family offices, this is even more true. So you got to go with their pace. You can't rush them. Right? The more you rush them, the more likely they are to back off. Another important element for family offices is that they'll do follow-up rounds, right? Because they have the funds to do it. So when they're entering initially, you have to plan for a longer period. Now, getting access to family offices, I think, is going to be through partners or through just exploring, right? So you should be looking to get in touch with family offices as you're building a business, and not necessarily only when you're funding round, right? I think that's easier. That's where you're building the relationship, and when you go at the time of a funding round, they'll be more comfortable in evaluating and coming in, right? So showing maturity for a startup is important, unless you have high amount of IP.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on when, investors are smart, else they won't become investors, because if you raise when you needed money desperately, of course, first thing we do, I mean, I'm an investor, I'm a VC, we will be able to read you like a book and press your valuation down. So it's important that we raise when we don't need it, because then you can say, oh, I really don't need it, but if you want, I could consider you as a strategic investor. I think it's sort of a strategy that most startups, unfortunately, they need to bang a few walls before they realize that. And like I said, nobody will invest in you, especially in Asia, when you just shoot an email and say, can you invest in me? And I get that, I'm sure you get that a lot as well through LinkedIn, right? The first email is like, hi, so-and-so, can you invest in me? I'm like, what?
Exactly.
So maybe some of the things that we need to teach these young people and whoever is raising money, right? The first impression is so important, and I think sincerity is brings you a long way, right? And I think self-entitlement is not, it's not going to work, because if you have a great technology, and so are the other millions of people, if it's just money, right? So I think, maybe one of the things that your organization should be doing for the fintech startups is really, coaching them how to approach investors or partners, and just not, can you invest in me, right? That would, I'm sure, turn off many people, right?
So when we talk to startups, that's what we say, right? Like, you need to build that relationship. You need to be aware of the cultural norms when you're talking to the investor. And for strategic investment, you should go to corporate ventures, right? They are more better for strategic investment. While even there are some fintechs, if you think, okay, the family office will help, or this VC is fintech focused, they'll help. You got to be aware about, sometimes people are like, I don't mind giving away more equity because we get the strategic investment. So then look at the portfolio, right? If the portfolio is complementary to what you're doing, right, then you should look at it, because then they can plug you into it. Otherwise, do they have the time, right? How many strategic investors are you going to bring in? Will they have the time? I mean, if you don't have a good synergy with them personally, right? If the founders and the VCs don't have that, then it's very unlikely that you'll be agreeing on large decisions, which is what is needed. So as much as you may think of the VC as such, the person from the VC may be on your board or be the main advisor is important for you to evaluate, not just the money coming in or the brand name that it comes to.
Yeah, I think that's a very good advice. It is something that perhaps some founders and some of us, take it for granted at times especially when we are, pressed, or we've been pressured to raise funds. But I always tell people, raise it when you don't need it, build relationship. Don't go to people when you need something. Good relationships are built when you can connect, when you don't need anything from each other. Because, you and I know that if I go to you with the intention to get something, you'll be so guarded, right? So anyway, thank you so much for your time today. And, I certainly look forward to connect with you. You have I think we are on LinkedIn. And I look forward to, perhaps going back to Hong Kong and have our face-to-face event again.
I look forward to that as well.
Perhaps, the Fintech Association and Asia CEO can have a joint event with Gary as well. So thank you again so much, and for your time today.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Gary.